So last week we did a very lumdish topic having to do with monetary law. This week's going to be kind of different. It's a bit more agadic, okay, a bit more Jewish thought oriented. And let's just start with this introduction. Okay, those of you who are interested in archaeology might be aware that when we find Hebrew texts from, let's say, more than 2,500 years ago, they're written in a different alphabet. Okay, it is called Ktav Ivri. Okay, and in English you might call it, sometimes you might call it the Samaritan script or Paleo Hebrew, but let's call it Ktav Ivri. And the Hebrew script that we use today in a Torah scroll is called Ktav Ashuri. Okay, so obviously there's a question: what exactly happened? Right? Did we change the script? And the Gemara already addresses this issue. So let's look at the first thing, Gemara in Sanhedrin. Okay, so here we go. Amar Mar Sutra, Vitem Mar Ukva, B'tchila Ninna Torah Yisrael B'Ktav Ivri V'Lashon HaKodesh. What was the original revelation? Ktav Ivri was the alphabet, and the language was Hebrew. Chazra V'Nitnelam B'Mei Ezra, but when Ezra HaSofer, right, Ezra's involved in the return to Israel for the second Beit HaMikdash. When Ezra brought them back, notice a double switch. They switched to the Ashuri script and to Aramaic. Okay, now which of the two is more radical? For sure the second, right? I think we can make a case that what the letters look like ultimately is really just a technicality. It doesn't really change the content. Obviously, if you're more mystically inclined to think that the shape of a letter matters, maybe that'll also be a problem. But I think we could argue that letters don't matter. But it is kind of radical to say that they switched the language. Okay, we'll come back to that. And then Birul and Yisrael, but Yisrael made a choice. What did we choose? Again, the first model was Ivri Lashon HaKodesh. Second model was Ashuri Aramit. Okay, what did we choose? Birul and Yisrael, Ktav Ashuri V'Lashon HaKodesh. And we did a compromise. What did Am Yisrael choose, as it were? The Ashuri script, but the Hebrew language, which is, of course, what we use today. Okay, great. V'nichu lahedyotot ktav ivrit u'lashon arami. Who would they leave the other options to? The simpletons. The hedyotot. Man hedyotot, who are they? Rav Chisda Kutai. You might know this from Brooklyn, guys. Who are the Kutim? The Samaritans. And in fact, today, guys, you can go visit them. Go up to, Har Grizim, Har Yival, visit the Samaritans. You will see indeed that their script is still reminiscent of Ktav Ivri. It is not like our script. Okay, so here the Gemara, I guess, is aware that the Samaritans kept this kind of script. Fine. Now, we have Mar Sutra. We'll come back to him, but he seems pretty radical. Now, apparently some of the other Tanaim struggled with it. Before we get to the struggle, let's see one thing about Ezra. Okay, we're now in the second paragraph in Sanhedrin. By the way, I did my classic trick here, guys. I didn't want anyone to be intimidated by a long Gemara in Sanhedrin, so I just broke it up into 3 pieces, so it looked like it's not so long. Okay, now I've revealed it. Okay, if you need to go into teaching, that's the move, guys. Okay, there's students that get scared by long Rambans, just artificially break it up into sections, and then they're good to go. Okay, here we go. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Ra'uya Ezra Shetinatan Torah Yadol Yisrael. This is going to become important later. Ezra is held up as this great figure. In fact, Ezra is so great, he could have been the receiver of Torah, but unfortunately Moshe had already taken the job. But Ezra could have done it. And then the Gemara sets up all kinds of interesting parallels. But Moshe Omer, Moshe Olalo Kim, Ezra Omer, who Ezra Alami Bavel. They both have some kind of important aliyah. Ma'aliyah Murakan Torah, Aliyah Murakan Torah. B'Moshe Mevotit Tziva Hashem Beiti Lamed Tchum Kuim Mishpatim. Be'Ezra Omer Ki Ezra Yichn Levol Drosha Torah Hashem Elokav V'Lasot Lamed Yisrael Chok Mishpat. So Ezra also, right, they both have an aliyah. They both teach Torah. Ezra somehow Moshe take 2. Now we're going to get to this later, but maybe we'll already set the stage. If you view Ezra as kind of Moshe number 2, what would you say might be the difference between the Torah that each one gave? Right? If Ezra somehow is a new Moshe. So what does he add to the Torah curriculum, as it were? Well, think about when Ezra is. Okay, actually it can't be Nevi'im, although that was a good guess. Because Ezra is actually when the period of prophecy comes to a close. Right? Yeah? What if we view Moshe as the grand teacher of Torah Shebechtav, and Ezra as the grand teacher of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Now, I'm not saying that Torah Sheba'al Peh didn't exist before Ezra, but couldn't you argue that it kind of flowers after Ezra? Right? Think about what's most of the Torah Sheba'al Peh we know. Mishnah, Gemara, all that is post-Ezra, right? So maybe we have a sense of Moshe and Ezra being two pillars of Torah. We'll come back to this point. Yeah?
Wasn't it not post-Ezra? Wasn't it just written down?
Okay, so this goes to how we understand Torah Sheba'al Peh. I'll mention very briefly, guys. There are two ways to think of Torah Sheba'al Peh. One way is that everything was given at Sinai, and just we forgot certain things as time goes along. Or a system, a method was given at Sinai, and then human beings over the course of time are meant to develop that method or utilize the method to work out the halakha. So both positions exist in our tradition. I'm a big believer in the second position, in which case you could have a certain sense of Torah Sheba'al Peh taking off at a given time, right? And again, how much, I don't get to a long discussion now, but how much halachic debate do we have during Bayit Rishon? Right, it doesn't seem like there's very much during Bayit Rishon. And in Bayit Sheni, there's this explosion of the oral law. Okay, but that's more for a different year. Yeah?
Even with the second opinion, position, like there's still like the idea of halakha Moshe Sinai?
Okay, sure. It just doesn't mean that not everything is halakha Moshe Sinai.
I was asking, so.
Yeah. I mean, I might say as follows, that the fact that pre-Eitz Hadar is an etrog, that is a tradition from Sinai. What is the definition of a dried out etrog that rabbis could argue about? Okay, yeah.
If it was more so a system, wouldn't as time goes on we get more credible and not less credible?
What do you mean by credible?
Well, because when we talk about rabbis, like when we have like a Tana or like Amarai, like you go credibility based on how old.
Oh, I see what you mean. That's a good question, actually. I'll just point out that our... Okay, Ethan? Yeah. You can go. Okay. I just pointed out that our system actually goes in both directions, meaning it's true that the Amorim don't argue on the Tanaim, and post-Gemara doesn't argue on Gemara, all that's true. But within a time period, there's actually a rule called Halacha Kibat Roi. Who knows what Halacha Kibat Roi means? Halacha follows, Ari Monk? The last one. Right, so in the world of Amorim, you might go with the last Amora. So I'm not going to address it. Tyler, it's a good question. Just realize that we have both impulses in our tradition. Okay, but you get that? Okay, great. Now, let us go to, continuing the Gemara. So after we made all these pals in Moshe and Ezra, what does it say? Afal pi shelo nitna Torah al yado, nishtana al yado. Ezra didn't give the Torah, but what did he do? Nishtana? It changed. He changed the Torah, which is what we said, that the script and the language differed when Ezra came back from Bavel. Okay, great. Now let's skip to the third paragraph. And now we'll see some Tanaim who did not accept this. Tanya Rebbe Omer, B'tchila b'ktav zeh nitna Torah l'Yisrael. No, what was the original text? Ktav zeh, namely Ashurit. Kivin shechatu, but when they sinned, nepach len l'ro'etz, it somehow became a stumbling block or a problem. Kivin shechazru ben hichziu len. It's not clear what this means, but I'm just going to leave it on the side for now. Rebbe seems to think that the trajectory was actually Ashurit, Ivrit, Ashurit. And somehow we messed up, and that's when Ivrit switched to Ashurit, but we got it back together. So obviously the advantage of his approach is Ashurit is actually the original script, right? We are today using the original script for the Torah. Okay, and then it gets even stronger in the next one. Third line, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Mishum Elazar ben Prata, Sham Mishum Elazar Modai, Ktav ze lo nishtana kol ikar. Actually, this script, it never changed. Okay, so we're going to just boil it down to two basic positions, even though you could have three, which is the Mar Zutra position that there really was a change, and the Rabbi Elazar Modai position that nothing ever changed. Noam.
Specifically talking about the five, the Chumash.
Yeah, Chumash. Okay, great. One more Gemara through in, then we'll get to the commentaries. Okay, so let's go to Megillah Daf Bet. Those five letters, Mem Nun Tzadi Pei Chaf, Tsofim Amarum. I don't know who the Tsofim might be. Well, Mani but Tsofim are the scouts, but we don't mean the scouts. What am I mean in biblical Hebrew? That's Sofeh. Anyone? Who knows their Sefer Shmuel? Anyone? Any Sefer Shmuel experts over here? Okay, guys. How does Shaul? Akiva, you're smiling. Do you know Sefer Shmuel? No? Okay. That's because we don't learn Sefer Shmuel. Okay. How's your knowledge of Haftorahs? Okay. But in any case, who remembers how Shaul first meets Shmuel? Okay, Rafi Wilson.
I'm more familiar with the English names, if you don't mind.
Go with it. Go for it.
The king, where future King Shaul is looking for his father's donkeys, and he comes
Good.
to a town, and he's wanting to turn back. A servant of his says that there's a great prophet here.
Great.
So he goes and meets Samuel there, and God singles out Shaul as the king.
Okay, terrific. Just curious, why did you use the word Shaul the whole time if you want to go to English?
Saul.
You don't have to. I was just curious. Okay. Guys, remember Shaul is looking for the family donkeys? And they give him advice, you could go to Shmuel. He'll let you know where the family donkeys are. But it says that in those days, before they used the term Navi, they used to call him the... Yeah, but what's the Hebrew word? Sofeh. By the way, it's ironic that, given the topic of this year, we have people just doing things in English and not in Hebrew. Okay, but it's Sofeh. Sofeh is a seer. Sofeh means to look ahead, right? Why is Harat Sofim called Harat Sofim? What does it really mean? What does it say? What do we call it in English? Mount Scopus, right? You're scoping out. How do you say to anticipate in Mount Hebrew? Ani mitzapeh. Mitzapeh is to anticipate. Okay, so Sofeh is a prophet. Yes, Gavi, nice shirt, brother Gavi. Yeah.
It's like so fed.
Yes. Well, he looks ahead. Okay, good. Okay, great. Back over here, guys. So these letters, which are like the Sophiot, right? There's a different mem at the end of a word, different sadi. The prophet said them. V'tizber, wait. V'aktiv eila mitzvot she'ei navi rishai l'chadesh davar miyata. Wait, but prophets are not allowed to innovate. How could they make up new letters? V'od, Amar of Chizda, mem v'samach shebeluchot, b'nei sayomtim. Okay, so let's think, guys. If you carve out a letter, what happens if the letter has a circular shape? Well, the little piece of what's that call it? Stone in the middle is going to fall, right? So the claim is, the only reason the mem and the samach worked was because it was miraculous. But what if I tell you that the shape of the letters, which ones are circular, is different whether it's k'tav ivri or k'tav ashuri? So then that assumption might, now I'll give it away, guys. This only works if we're talking about k'tav ashuri. So this would seem to again indicate, let's move away from our Zutra and say that the Luchot were actually given in our current script. Because in K'tav Ivri, you would not need a miracle to hold up the mem. Yes, Rafi?
But don't we have fig paintings where people draw like stick figures and they have circular heads?
Wait, is that a question on like archaeology? What's the question? I'm not sure.
Why couldn't the letters be circular? If we have like
I think that is the answer. What if it's not just carved a little bit, but carved all the way through to the other side? I think that's the difference. Okay? So,
why would it be carved through?
Okay, so look at how the Torah describes the Luchot, and you'll see that they're carved totally through.
It doesn't describe it as like it's like a...
I believe the phrase is mizeh u'mizeh him ktuvim. I think that's what it says. Okay, take a look, Rafi, okay? Take a look at how the Luchot are described. Okay, see, this guy's a serious guy. He's looking it up right now. Correct, Evan? Now you can tell who's serious. People look things up in the middle of Shiur. Okay, Evan, you're now the second most serious guy in the yeshiva. Okay, after Sam, because Sam bought my book. Okay. All right, so let's go to, so let's now see what we have in the commentaries. So let's start with the language. Can we all agree? We all agree that the language is a more radical idea than the script. You could say changing the script's a technicality. What about changing the language? Okay, so a couple of Mefarshim really try to tone it down. Now, notice, guys, the commentaries are going to differ. I know I've said this before, but I can't reiterate it enough. This is a little bit more agadic than halachic. Notice, all of a sudden, it's not Tosfos and the Ritva, right? Who are the main agadic commentaries? Marsha and Maharal. So we'll see now that they are going to speak up right away. Here we go. Let us go to the Marsha. V'hata kam v'reish per kam d'megillah mem b'samach shebelucho b'nei sayomdim hainu command amar de lo nishtan ha'ktav mimoshe Ezra Klal. Right, again, because the mem only needed a miracle if it's ktav ashuri. So that would indicate that it's all ktav ashuri from the get-go. V'achi muchav Yushalmi, mandam bereitz in the Torah ayin masanisim, mandam ashrin in the Torah samach masanisim. It's really interesting, Yushalmi. What does Yushalmi basically say? Everyone agrees there was a miracle letter, but which letter it was depends on this debate. Right? If the Luchot were in Ketav Ivri, it was an ayin that was miraculous. If they were in Ketav Ashri, then it was a mem that was miraculous. Okay, fine. Next, umilta de marzutra kluk Rabbi Yossi. Fine. I'm skipping to Aval HaLashon. Okay, so that is all about Aval HaLashon is after the ellipsis on line 5. That's all about the script. So the Marsha could live with the fact that somebody might think the script was originally Ivri. He could live with that. The script could change. Aval HaLashon with the language, lo nishtan elam yom. That never changed. V'adainu b'lashon hakodesh yinu b'torah. It's still the same Hebrew. Wait, so what did the Gemara say about Marzutra saying there was a shift to Arami? Umashkav shinilem Torah me'ezer b'lashon Aramit. Hainu nami mashemalach katab b'lashon Aramit mina takalu farsin of Yisrael lo ratzu boto lashon shebachar malach. Now this is really narrowing down the Gemara. Does everyone know which episode he just made reference to? Now we'll see who knows their Sefer Daniel. Okay. What is that quote from? Mina takal ufarsin. Who's our Daniel expert here? Okay, excellent. Reuben, your dad's knowledgeable. We brought in a ringer. Exciting. Guys, remember in Sefer Daniel, a hand miraculously comes out and writes a message on the wall and nobody can interpret it? In fact, that shows you the influence of the Bible on all of Western culture, because there's so many phrases we have that are just biblical. What phrase comes from that, of course? Seeing the writing on the wall. Okay, does anyone know another classic English phrase that comes from Sefer Daniel? Oh, that's a good question for the final. 2 English phrases that come from Sefer Daniel. Oh, who said that? Was great. Okay, very good. And you can't even say it's because your dad's Israeli. Way to go. Okay, I hear the phrase when you're in trouble that, oh no, I've been thrown in the lion's den. Okay, where's that from, of course? Because Daniel was thrown into a pit of lions. Okay, terrific. Okay, in any case, guys, but what's the claim here? When the hand wrote it out, what language did the hand write it in? Well, even think about the words. What does it sound like? Mina, takalu, farsin? Aramaic. So that was this brief flurry of Aramaic, but the people soon rejected it and went back to Hebrew. So notice what he's done. He basically refuses to say that there really was a shift to Aramaic. Again, shifting the language would be too dramatic. We wouldn't do that. There was this brief flurry of Aramaic when the angelic hand wrote out the message, but it was soon pushed aside. Okay, now that seems really narrowing down the Gemara, but maybe there's a way to say it's not so narrow, but still stick with the idea. So let us go to the Netziv. Okay, Ramatali Tzvi to Berlin was the Rosh Hashiva of Volozhin. Excellent. He has a parish on Gemara called Meromei Sadeh, which is because, guys, if you ever write a parish on anything, think about where your name appears in Tanakh. So the name Naphtali in Shirat Dvorah is associated with Meromei Sadeh. It says Naphtali and Meromei Sadeh. So therefore, if your name is Naphtali, your parish would be the Meromei Sadeh. So look what he says here. So let us skip to the second side, actually. Page 2. So he says, when we say, I'm going to start from the top here. I know it's mid-sense, but here we go. Ezra B'Lashon Arami. What did the Gemara mean when it said that Ezra switched the Torah to Aramaic language? V'adai lokai al Sefer Torah shebazara. It's certainly not the Sefer Torah in the Mikdash. Shari efshar l'drosh Lashon Arami ba'ota ofen shedarshan Lashon HaKodesh. Right, again, the language really matters. That's a content shift. We can't move away from Hebrew. Elakai al mitzvat ktivat Sefer Torah l'kolachem Yisrael. The ikar tam of word b'mikra l'man tieli le'ed. Va'az lo hevinu Lashon HaKodesh ela armi. V'imkein ikar mitzvah hu arami. Okay, he does something amazing here, guys. Okay, what is the last mitzvah in the Torah? The mitzvah 613. Yes, the mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah. Maybe we'll give Shiur Klali on a different day. Now, how do we fulfill that? Oh, Joseph, this is for you. How do we fulfill that mitzvah today? Anyone know a famous Rosh? What the Rosh says? We said that. That was very good. Very good. The Rosh says we fulfill it by buying Svarim. That's you. You fulfill this biblical mitzvah daily. Very exciting. Okay, now, how could the Rosh say that? So this is an unusual mitzvah in that here we assume we do know the reason for the mitzvah. And since we know the reason, we actually apply the reason halakhically, which we don't usually do. So what's the Rosh's claim? Why do we want everyone to write a Torah? To promote Talmud Torah. There'll be more learning if there's more texts, right? Everyone has a Torah in their house. So what's the Rosh claim? Nowadays, how do we promote Talmud Torah? Not through us. None of us, unless you're in Uniel on a Friday night, none of us learn directly from a Torah scroll, right? We learn from Svarim. So therefore, the Rosh says we do it today by buying Svarim. Okay, I'll leave aside that Rosh for a second, but now the Nitziv is something great. What's his claim? What shifted to Aramaic at the time of Ezra? Not the official Sefer Torah in the Mikdash, but rather, what did you just say, guys, on the second line? Which Torah switched to Aramaic? No. Which physical Torahs? The ones that people wrote and kept in their house. Why would that be if the real Torah is supposed to be in Hebrew? Because what does he claim? It's like today in America, right? People understand English and don't understand Hebrew. So people understood Aramaic and not Hebrew. So if you want to promote Talmud Torah, what were they forced to do? Yeah, write in Aramaic. It wasn't ideal, but this is about promoting Talmud Torah. So I'm just going to, some we haven't, I'll take comments, but I think it's a very interesting chiddush of the Nitziv. Again, I think it's a better pshat than what we saw in the Marsha because it doesn't make it so narrow. Again, what's the problem here? The Gemara seems to indicate Ezra shifted the language from Hebrew to Aramaic. Now that's hard to understand because you really change the content if you use a translation. So the Marsha said, no, it was very limited. We only mean like the Malach's hand writing in Aramaic, which doesn't sound like what the Gemara says. However, for the Nitziv, it was much wider. It wasn't the official Torahs. Official Torahs were still in Hebrew. But for the purpose of learning, for people keeping a Torah in their house, they actually did shift to Aramaic just for the purpose of promoting Talmud Torah so people understand it. Apparently at some point, they then switched back to Hebrew. Noam.
Wait, so when they wrote in Aramaic, they wrote like Arabic, they translated to Aramaic.
Yeah.
Basically the terms both words.
Yeah, correct. It could be as if Unkelus was the Chumash. Okay, I'll tell you a good Unkelus story about my brother. Okay, my brother who teaches in Fresh wanted to work on Unkelus one year. So then he wanted to work on his Aramaic. So he's reading the Unkelus and he gets stuck. He doesn't understand what the words mean. So what does he do? He looks at the Chumash. But notice what he's doing. He's using Chumash as his translation of Unkelus. It's like it was a little backwards. Okay. Anyway, someone else had a hand over there? No, we're good? Okay, so we have, this wraps up topic one. Topic one was the shifting to a different language, and quite understandable, the Rishon, the Mefarshim are very reluctant about that. They all try to narrow it down, and we say today too, guys, right, if you really want to understand something, you have to read it in the original, right, and we want to promote, that's what we try to promote, even though we're an English-speaking yeshiva, that sources, if at all possible, should be read in Hebrew and Aramaic and not in English. Okay, but let's move on to the script. What should we make of this issue of the script changing, where I think we agreed that is less radical. The idea that the script might change from Ivri to Ashuri. Okay, so let us go first to the Ritva and then to the Maral. Now, the Ritva is Rishon from Spain. Okay, very briefly, some of you might also think that even saying the script changed is radical. Okay, I can just hear somebody saying that, and maybe the Ritva is not going to like that so much. So let's see what the Ritva does. Okay, so we're going to go to, and let's read from the beginning. Wait, so what did the Gemara Megillah say? Prophets can't change anything. It can't be that the prophet added the letters Mem Nun Tzadi, the Sofit letters. Okay, here we go. Perk Kohen Gadol, excuse me. There is no Perk of Gimel Sanhedrin. The Ezra Shina Taktav. Do my Ashurit Shalim Mi Ashur? Wait, if prophets can't change anything, how could Ezra even change the script? Okay, V'tirtzu Dahatam Kra Ashkachu V'Darish Tektiv V'Katal Mishnah Terazot Ktav Asulish Tanot. Okay, in his range, guys, look at the two answers. What's his first answer? They based it on a pasuk. They had a drasha. They said, what does the word Mishnah Torah hint at? Mishnah from the language of Shinoi, that the Torah is subject to change. You might change the alphabet one day. Look at the second answer. V'acherim tirtzu da lo chashiv chidush mishum chiluf haktav b'ktav acher. That I find fascinating. What's the second answer? What does it mean lo chashiv chidush? How's the verb chashiv being used here? Not from the word significant. Very good, Leo. Right, it's really from the word machshava. Okay, here we go. Let's say we're discussing who's got the best shirt for Shiur Klali. And someone says it must be Oh, it must be Gabi. Okay, and so it says, no, hachultzah shel Gabi. Ze lo nechshav. What does it mean, ze lo nechshav? Not that it's not significant, it's not considered. Okay, from the word machshavat, to think. Okay, so here, what's lo chashiv chidush, guys? It's not a change. Why not? What did you just say? Mishum chiluf haktav b'ktav acher. What's chiluf? It's exchange. What's he basically arguing? Something we argued with before. Guess what? Changing the alphabet is not considered an innovation. It's not a change. Because what's the claim here? What shape the letters have, that's a technicality. Right? That's not of essential content. So notice again, the Ritva was bothered at first. How could there be a change in the alphabet? First answer, no, it was based on a pasuk. That's why they were able to do it. Second answer, that's not a change, right? Which has a certain amount of leeway here, because, claiming that the shape of the alphabet doesn't really matter so much again. Yosef.
I mean, I'm not a capitalist. But these guys, these rabbis, they must have at least held that Kabbalah is a thing in Judaism. Like, they have to address it somehow.
Okay, so Yosef's asking as follows: that what about if the Kabbalists say that the letters were involved in forming the cosmos, and specifically the letters as they're shaped in Ktav Ashuri? Okay, so I would say two things. First of all, there are three opinions in Sanhedrin, right? So someone might say that depends on which opinion you go with, right? The first opinion in Sanhedrin said that the original was Ivri and switched to Ashuri, and then you have those who say it never changed. So maybe the Kabbalists will just line up with Rebbe and not with Mar Zutra.
But whether or not you're a capitalist, like Kabbalah still exists within
Okay, the second thing I'll say. Okay, look, I see what happens to get more agadic topic. It becomes like more machshavash here. All right, I'm not going to get to it in depth, guys, but I'll say this: there aren't so many rabbinic thinkers who rejected Kabbalah, but there are plenty who made a whole Jewish worldview without Kabbalah. Meaning they didn't so much reject it, they ignored it. Okay, so I think you do have, like if I ask you, I know Rav David will disagree, but I'm going to say it anyway. If I ask you how much influence did Kabbalah have in the Rambam's philosophy, I think the answer is 0. Okay, if I ask you how much influence did Kabbalah have in Rav Hirsch's philosophy, once again, I think the answer is 0. Okay, so again, they're not saying that Kabbalah is wrong, but they apparently think you could develop a whole network of Jewish thought without bringing Kabbalah. Okay, we'll give a longer talk about that some other day. Okay, I will tell you, if you want to hear the other side, go ask Rav David, who'll explain why the Rambam really does match up with Kabbalah. I just think it's incorrect. Yeah?
The shape of the letter doesn't really matter. So I'm like, understanding why is the Torah invalid if the letters are set up?
Ah, excellent question. So in fact, wait, where is it? Oh, it's not exactly your question, but go back to source 4, the last line. The last line, note 4, so we're still on the same side. Okay, what did the Nitziv argue? Remember, guys, that the one in the Azara was in Hebrew, but their personal Sefer Torahs were in Aramaic. So look what he says. Wait. What did the Gra say? If you even messed up one little piece of the letter, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah. So he says, El nira dil inyan kedushat Sefer Tukein of lo linyan mitzvah. So there he has 2 levels. He says the mitzvah of writing a Torah is irrespective of whether getting every little jot right, but kedushat Sefer Torah is a function of getting one right. Now, I realize your question's still a dying. It's okay. I'll leave it aside for now. Okay, well, good guys. Yeah, Ari Monk.
When the Ritva works out that Ishtanot from the word Mishnah, isn't that, wouldn't that not be correct? Wouldn't it be like Mishnah is in teach like?
Okay, so guess what? If you go back to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, okay, Ari, I'll just look with me for 1 second. Look at the last line of the second paragraph and the last line of the third paragraph. What's the last line of the second paragraph? V'ktiv v'katav Mishnah Torah zot, ktav ha'ra'ui l'ishtanot. So how is that part of the Gemara reading it? Mishnah from the language of Shinui, change. Wait, go to the last line. Ktav zeh lo nishtana kol ikar, el manika mishneh torazot, l'shtei torot. What's the claim here? No, Mishnah is not from the language of Shinoi. It's the language of Shnayim. So that point is precisely debated in the Gemara.
Why aren't they given the
You want to ask, if you're asking me who the simple pshat is, you're right. The simple pshat is not Shinoi. Okay, good. It's a good question. Okay, but be that as it may, though, the Gemara does state that position. All right, guys. So back to the issue of Ktav. So let us see. Ritvan, we're going to go to an amazing moral at the end. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's go to the second paragraph. I know it looks a little long, but we'll be okay. V'zeh tema gadol. Sheyeh Ktav hazeh mushar sheyesh b'chol kotes v'kotes. Here, no, this is for you. Mimenu tali tilim shalachot yesodei Torah. If we're going to take every jot and tittle seriously, every little line on top of the letters, right? So that means that Ashurit is where it's at, right? Ktav shel bnei Ashur via luchot miktav ivri. If that's true, how could it be that the luchot were ivri? He can't accept Mar Zutra's position, right? He's basically claiming here that the shape of the letters does matter. Here we go. Excuse me. Miktav ivri maneisei b'mem v'samach. Avavadai ain't safek here, guys. Shezeh katuv hanikra ashur. Zeh ktav hanikra ashurit. Hu ktav hakodesh shebeluchot. No, he says everybody agrees. Luchot and ashurit. V'Hashem kach nikra kodesh. Okay, so what happened? V'chein lashon hakodesh me'olam nirek ktavu ela beluchot. Of lashon hakodesh kvar nedelavo b'nei Yisrael kol Torah. Abo Hashem edab v'yaf. Here we go, guys. V'yaf al pikein mitoch tumat v'kedushat haktavahu. Because they treated it with great sanctity. What's the claim, guys? It was so sanctified that they said it's really restricted. We'll only use it for things like the luchot. We're not going to even use it for our Sifrei Torah. Now, what would be an analogy to this, guys? So I think if you'll excuse, I hope no one will be upset if I say this, maybe it's a little bit like the Catholic Church, meaning what's the language of prayer? At least till recently, right? Latin. Nobody speaks Latin, no, but that's the holy tongue, right? So whatever we're speaking, okay, we'll speak, French and German and whatever, but prayer's in Latin. So for the Ritva, there was something similar regarding alphabet. How did it work? What was the holy alphabet? Ashuri, which is what we use today, and that's why, Noam, we could make drushot even on details. But what it was colloquially used? Ivri. Okay, and then at some point they decided we're not going to do that anymore, and it's actually the opposite of the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church dropped Latin, but we decided, no, we're just going to use Ashuri for everything. Now, it's one thing that's a little bit odd about the Ritva, because he claims, let's say we have the sanctified script and the mundane script. But what does he have to say? Even in the King's Sefer Torah, or your personal Sefer Torah, what was it? According to him? What did he just say? What did he say, guys? Lo yakotonotan, this holy script, afilu bisvarim shekotev hamelech o kol echad v'latzmo. What's the claim? Even in those Torahs, they used Ivri, which means somehow the sanctified script did not include Sifrei Torah. That I find a little bit odd. Oh, the Luchot, that's sanctified. So the Luchot has to be Ashuri. But everything else, including Sifrei Torah, could be Ivri. But in any case, it's clear why the Ritva is doing this, because he's really responding to Noam's point. Okay, guys, I'm going to sum what we've done so far, and then we'll get to the great Chiddush at the end. Okay, first the summary, then questions, and then the Chiddush at the end. Okay, what did the Gemara in Sanhedrin say? If we're not Mar Zutra, the whole Shiur doesn't get off the ground. Because what did the position at the end say about change? Last position was? Nothing changed. Okay, but what if you go like Mar Zutra, that there was change? And then there's change both of, according to him, when Ezra came back, both of the alphabet and of the language. Now, language was too much for people. So notice what the Netziv and do? Limited it greatly. What does it mean the language shifted? If you're the Marsha, it's just about that angel writing in Sefer Daniel. What does it mean if you are the Netziv? When it comes to the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah for the purpose of learning, that shifted to Aramaic. Because they didn't understand Hebrew. Okay, great. That's about language. What about script? So here, notice we're going back and forth here. Does the script really matter? Because even in the Ritva you saw that. The Ritva said, how could the prophets change the script? Notice the two answers. One, they had a drasha. Two, it's not considered a shift. So that's the angle that script is a technicality. But then later the Ritva says, no, but as Noam says, don't we make drashot based on the script? And therefore he says, no, it was always Ashuri. That was the sanctified one for the Luchot. But they treated it as the sanctified Tav, not for everyday usage. Everyday usage was Ivri, till a later point in Jewish history. Okay, we're going to get to one more source, but first, Alex, where's your dad? Ah, too bad. Okay. He would have liked Shiur.
Sure he would.
Yeah.
If, according to the Ritva, he says that it went from Ivri to Ashuri, how do we know where to put like all the additional lines on top of the letters in the rest of the Sefer Torah?
No, the Ritva says that the Luchot started in Ashuri.
Yeah, but the rest of
So
the Torah.
I guess we had some kind of record beyond the Luchot, I suppose. Right? Yeah.
Is Ashuri the same as Paleo Hebrew?
The same as what?
Is Paleo Hebrew?
Paleo Hebrew is Ivri, not Ashuri. Okay, guys, if anybody wants to see what we're talking about, if it's too abstract for you, just get online, look up Ketav Ivri or Paleo Hebrew, and you'll see what the old alphabet is like and what the new alphabet's like. Oh, I'll tell you a story, guys, about a teacher without a sense of humor. Okay, has anyone here ever learned the Ketav Ivri alphabet? Anyone learn it? Oh, there we go. Ben, why'd you learn it?
I just find it really interesting.
Okay, wow. Okay, see, parents, see, we have intellectually curious students here in Orayta. Okay, so here's the story, guys. So my sons went to a high school in Yerushalayim called Chorev, okay, which is a very good high school. And there's a legendary language teacher, Lashon teacher there, whose last name is Horowitz, but he's a huge guy, and is colloquially known as Jumbo. Okay, if you know anybody who goes to Chorev, ask about Jumbo. And I'll tell you why he's a legendary teacher, because I think we'd all agree that probably the last thing you want to do in life is be a language teacher in high school. Right? Most high school kids do not find language particularly interesting. Okay, and yet this guy, he's so good at it and so enthusiastic that you can't say every kid, but he actually infects some kids with his love of language. It's really remarkable. Okay, guys, if you want to go into education, go sit in his class once. Okay, a guy named Horowitz who teaches Lashon in the Chorev Boys High School. Anyone know anybody who went to Chorev? Okay. So in any case, okay, because if you guys know like American families in Yerushalayim, a lot of them send their boys to Chorev. Okay, so in any case, here's the story, guys. So he had a special summer session where they would do extra things in language. Okay, so our second son, who loves language, decided to go one year. Okay, and among other things, Mr. Horowitz taught them Ketav Ivri. Okay, that was part of this like summer week-long, language camp, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now he gives a final at the end of the camp, and my son decides to write all his answers in Ketav Ivri. Okay, so that's what he did. He wrote it, and he gives him the final, all the answers in Ketav Ivri. And here's where a teacher has no sense of humor. So what did Horowitz do? He wrote the grade on top and did not comment on the fact that it was in Ketav Ivri. Right? So that is pretty remarkable. So for years I was upset that, how could you not comment that my son wrote the whole thing in Ketav Ivri? Okay, and then I found him like 5 years later and said, why didn't you comment? And he said, well, he's not the first kid to think of it. I still think you should comment though. Okay, Eli.
Just for some clarification, so it was written, like the language of what exactly changed to
If you're the Ritva?
No, I'm saying it changed to
Again, we're talking about language or alphabet? Which one?
language.
So language, Marzutra seemed to indicate there was Ezra shifted it to Aramaic, but the Mefarshim just couldn't accept that, so they toned it down. It was only something very specific that shifted to Aramaic.
Okay.
Either the Malach with writing, or the personal Sifrei Torah in people's houses. That's what shifted to Aramaic, but not that the Torah at large shifted to Aramaic. The Torah was always Hebrew. Okay? Yeah, Lior.
Are there any opinions out there that the Torah did actually make the shift to Aramaic and then back to Hebrew, and we have like a retranslated?
No, that's a good question. I have not found one, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Because look, on the one end, that might be the simplest reading of the Gemara. On the other end, it's a little bit hard to imagine. Because again, as we said, translation is not the same thing, right? Every translation, you're making an interpretive choice. So it's hard to believe it's the same Torah in a different language, right? So even though I'm open to radical ideas, I do think that's a little bit hard to accept. The idea that it would have been okay to translate the Torah into Aramaic, and that would be the Torah. Okay? Anybody else on this before we go to the last thing? All right, last thing, guys. Let us go to the Maharal. Now, one thing, if those of you who, like me, love Agadic, actually, you know what? I'll do some free advertising. Okay, guys, so I've only written one book in my life, but it is about the Agadic sections of the Gemara. This is what it looks like. Okay, and, I'll even tell you one more thing, guys. Okay, notice there's a fancy title and explanatory subtitle, right? Fresh fruit and vintage wine, the ethics and wisdom of the Agadah. Okay, so I was once talking to a bookseller named Pomerantz, who passed away, unfortunately, but he said he hates the title. I said, why do you hate the title? He said, because people read the title and they don't understand what the book's about. So I said, no, but they could get to the subtitle. He said, no, people don't even get to the subtitle. So I don't know if he's right, guys, but I guess you can, when you write your book, you consider that question. Okay, I'll say one last funny thing, sorry. So it's at a wedding, actually. So I said to the guy, Mr. Pomerantz, if they're not going to get to the subtitle, they're not going to read the book. So somebody else at the table says, he doesn't care if they read the book, he just wants them to buy the book. Okay, so in any case, if you get interested in Agadic material, remember I said the Marsha and the Maral. I want you to know where you find them. Where do you find the Marsha's commentary on Agadah? Marsha. Where do you find the Marsha's commentary on Agadah? In the back of a big shas, right? Just like the Rosh is in the back and the Rif is in the back, the Marsha is in the back. That's where you would find his commentary on Agadah. Where would you find the Maral's commentary on Agadah? Excellent, guys. So in that corner, which is actually the best makom in the base, right, there is something called Kol Kitvei Maral. Go take a look at some point, like 12 to 15 volumes, all the Maral's writings, and there are 4 volumes on Agadah. Okay, so that would be, there are other commentaries. Oh, thank you. Okay, there are other commentaries to look at, guys, but those would be my 2 basic, Marsha and Maral.
Would you be in a Kovish?
No. Oh, that shows you something. Oh, that's ranged too, guys. Okay. I've never used that example before, but I'm using it now, you see. Okay. As you guys know, in the world of yeshivot, what did the yeshivot tend to focus on? Which part of the Gemara? Halacha, not the Agadah. Remember we said that's very manifest in Tosfot? Because remember there are more words on an Agadic page because Tosfot's not talking? So I would say that's even manifest in the Kovetz. When people put out a Kovetz Mefarshim, they want you to have all the basic Mefarshim on a Masechet. But notice who's not there? The Maral, because what are they thinking, whoever put out the Kovetz? They're only thinking about the halachic sugyot, not about the Agadic sugyot. Okay, with that, let us go to the Maral. Okay, now I think I need a little break here. Anyone mind reading for me? I need a good Hebrew reader. All right, Ben, take it away. Source 6, last source, guys. So what does he want to know? Wait, I'm going to take it seriously that the original script was Ivri. Why was the original script Ivri? Hashem Yitbarach.
Hashem Yitbarach. התורה בדיבור לישראל, שהרי היה מדבר עמהם פה אל פה, וראוי שנתן התורה בלשון הקודש, כמו שדבר עמהם, ולא נתן להם בכתב אשרי, שהוא הכתב מאושר באותיות, כי התורה נתנה להם בדיבור, ומה שנתנה להם בדיבור לא בכתב, וכך היה ראוי
תינתן. Okay, before we get to his shift, what's he claiming? In Moshe's time, what was the primary method of transmitting Torah? Oral. Okay, next. Excellent. Guys, this is a very interesting topic, even beyond Judaism. What is the difference between transmitting knowledge orally or transmitting knowledge in writing? Okay, maybe before we even get to this, Maral, I'll toss out that question to you guys. Can you see any major differences between a society that mostly transmits knowledge orally or a society that mostly transmits through writing? Yeah, Alex.
Orally can get forgotten.
Okay, good. So you could say that writing is better at preserving. Yeah?
Orally can also get altered, like slight things.
Okay, so let's try this, guys. I thought this was going to happen. Can anyone think of an advantage to oral transmission? I think we're in a world where we're so used to having the text in front of us, we see all the advantages of written transmission. Is it possible that it's a two-edged sword? Jacob?
I mean, oral tradition forces you to have a conversation.
Excellent. What if the interpersonal is crucial to the transmission of knowledge? In a world of writing, I don't have to talk to anybody ever. I could just read. But in a world of oral transmission, I'm dependent on the discourse. Evan, you want to say the same thing?
Yeah.
Excellent, Evan. Okay, you're still the second more serious guy. Yeah.
It can help evolve to help with time. Like, it can be more applicable as it.
Very interesting. Okay, so guys, I'm not getting into it right now, but you should realize there's a huge conversation about this. There's between oral transmission and written transmission. And notice our tradition basically has both, right? We have a Torah Shebachtav and a Torah Shebal Peh. But what's the Maharal claiming here? That there was a shift in emphasis. In Moshe's time, what was the emphasis? Oral transmission. Ezra comes back from Bavel, and all of a sudden there's a shift to written. Now, a few things work very nicely, guys. What's Ezra's nickname? Ezra HaSofer. Obviously, what does a Sofer do? He writes. He's a scribe. Okay, and what does he want to claim? Ktav Ashuri is actually a better Ktav. But what does it symbolize, the shift to Ktav Ashuri? This shift from an emphasis on oral transmission to written. It's like to highlight the shift to the written word. So I think it's very interesting Maharal finds like deeper meaning in the shift. It's not just a technicality, it's saying something about the nature of Torah. Torah used to be primarily oral. It's now going to shift to being more written. And you know what? We'll actually change the script to reflect that. Let's read a little bit more. Ben? Oh, thank you so much. Okay, isn't that amazing, guys? What does Moshe get in the Torah? The kol, the voice. For Ezra, what was the voice? Writing. Yeah.
כל אחד כפי מעלתו, משה שנתן לו התורה בקול, הוא לא נתנה לו בכתב המאושר, אבל עזרא לא נתנה לו בלשון, היה דורש התורה שהיא קיבלה לפניו. וכיוון שכן הוא נתן על ידו הכתב המאושר.
Okay, we'll get to one final idea, guys, but I think it's very, very powerful Maharal, and it gets back to what I said earlier today, right? Maybe Ezra's Moshe take two, but what's Ezra? So, actually no, it's backwards now. Forget it. Forget what I said earlier today. Now I realize let's get Maharal ends up in the opposite, right? Because we have more. Wait, how did I say it before? No, I did say it correctly, right? Moshe is sorry, it is backwards. Yeah, forget it. Forget what I said. I'm not going to try to integrate what I said into the Maharal. Okay, but now one last idea. Last paragraph. Ki haktav. Here we go, guys. Some of you said this. What is another difference between oral transmission and written transmission? What did you just get at? How enduring it is. In theory, you might lose oral that's why they wrote down the Torah, right? You might lose oral transmission, but there's something more permanent, more lasting about written transmission. So the Maharal is going to say that's also a theme. Why is that a theme? Here we go. Tekaimelon. Kitcha l'shata v'lo kitcha. Okay, did anyone hear this idea before? What's the status of the land of Israel? So first Yeshua conquers it, it gets Kedusha. What happens when they go into exile? It loses the Kedusha. That's Kedusha Rishona, right? Bia Rishona. But what's the claim about Kedusha Shnia, about Ezra entering? That somehow is enduring. So maybe there's another theme here, guys. Ezra's also a symbol of the enduring nature of Torah. Right? That even when there are difficulties, it endures. And that also fits with a shift from Baal Peh to Ktav. So just to sum up, guys, I'm glad we made it through. Again, I'm still not feeling 100%, but worked out well. Okay, we have two Chidush Maharal I think are worthy of taking note of. According to Maharal, what happened with Ezra? There's a reason why it shifted from Ivri to Ashuri. First reason, he says, this is about the shift of the focus of Torah. Torah is going to shift from the oral transmission to the written, and to mark that, we shift to a different script, right? Focusing our attention on the written. Secondly, says the Maharal, the written also means it's more enduring, and that's a theme we seem to have in other Ezra ideas, that Ezra's conquest is the one that the Kedusha stands. Okay, yes, Joseph.
I don't see how shifting to one things outward, that's how you want to change the script.
Yeah, how does shifting emphasize the...
I'm starting to write stuff down will be to change the script.
Okay, so I would say two things. You could say it two ways. One is, per se, shifting the alphabet focuses people's attention on writing. Oh, this is a different alphabet than we used before. Or, I think he also alludes to the fact he thinks that Ktav Ashuri is superior. It's somehow more clear, So that also would be highlighting the writing. Oh, we're going to shift to a superior alphabet that's easier to read. Is that okay, Joseph? Okay, anybody else with a comment or question? Noam.
Another point, I feel like the Kama Street to be a thing about shifting like methods of writing at the time where Kama Ivri is much straighter, looks kind of like Greek, where it's like probably chiseled in. Kama Street is more like an ink.
Okay.
So
They say that fits with the morale.
it's easier to write, not this easier to read.
Oh, that's very interesting. Oh, it could be you're right, actually. Yeah, I didn't even mean that. Oh, no, very interesting. Okay, Ethan, last comment.
Were the Ten Commandments, they were given in
If you hold like the morale, right? Not if you hold like the Ritva.
Okay.
Right, you understand? Have a good day? Okay, guys, everybody have a great Shabbat.